happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. And I have a good friend coming on today that is going to absolutely rock and roll. I promise you, this guy is dynamic. He's done some pretty cool stuff. Been on a lot of, you may have seen him on TV. This guy has done some cool stuff. Dino Watt is a PhD, passionate husband and dad. He's also one of the most exciting business trainers and the author of the #1 best-selling books, The Practice RX and Hire and Fire Like a Boss. He has been featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and TEDx. As a high-performance practice advisor, Dino has frequently been referred to as the Tony Robbins of private practices. His goal is to help business leaders and teams create more passion in their life, be more productive in the office, and create more profit in all areas of their life. Dino, what's up, my brother?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I mean, we have all these business accolades, which is cool, but straight out of the gate, PhD, passionate husband and dad.
Yep.
You don't hear that often from business guys, entrepreneurs, or gals that are going to come out and say, this is really my priority. Yeah. But clearly, I would say, based on your intro, that's the case.
Yeah, it's funny because my wife still sometimes, whenever she hears it introduce me that way, when I'm getting ready to speak, wherever, she'll be like, "Oh, do people want to hear that?" And I was like, you know what? But that's the thing is, I don't have kids at home anymore, but I've always been passionate about being a dad and especially a husband. And it actually came from a level of feeling less than, because I work very heavily in the doctor space. I deal with a lot of medical offices and stuff like that. And when you get and you're presenting and you're up in front of people and they're all PhDs or DMDs or MMDs, like all of that stuff. And I went, you know what? I'm not those things. I mean, I barely graduated from high school, but these people are listening to me and I want to tell them what's the most important thing to me. And I just one day was like, and I don't have a PhD, and it just came to me. I was like, wait, passionate husband dad. Yeah, I am. I'm totally that. So I've been using it for probably over 10 years now, and it still doesn't get old for me because it's my priority.
Yeah, no, and it often gets lost in the shuffle where, you know, we see executives all the time. They're crushing it financially. I was actually talking about this on another show just recently. But the truth is they're not happy.
Right.
And they're missing out on so much. Has it always been a priority? Like, or did you lose yourself? Because I lost myself during that second company where I was grinding, brother. And I literally was almost divorced. I talk about it often. Yeah. Did you have that same challenge?
No, I've been very blessed. I've had a great marriage since my wife and I are married now. We're going on 20. Well, we just did 29 years in October, right? And we've known each other since we were 5. And one of the things that we did very early on is because I come from both of my parents being divorced 3 times. And I came from that space of going, I am making this priority. Now, I can tell you that there are times even now where I question so I wasn't as successful in business at a younger age. I was fine. I've always been an entrepreneur, but I look at some of my colleagues, people that I know in different groups, masterminds, stuff like that, where they crushed it at a young age. But I do see the sacrifice they made. And I made a different sacrifice. And I know I can even tell myself this sometimes as an excuse. I didn't go so hard in my business because I wanted to not be the absent dad, and I wanted to make time for my family and make that more important. And I can absolutely see where I probably could have done a lot better in business, and maybe I could have done both. Maybe I'm sure there are people out there who do both, have great marriages and great businesses. But I was so worried. Maybe that does come from a scarcity mindset now that we're talking about this. Thanks for the therapy in the middle of this. But that I really felt like if I was going to put that much priority in my business, I might miss out on my family, and I didn't want to do that. And so now that my kids are all grown, I mean, we had kids pretty early on. We had 3 kids in 3 years. So it's all a big jumble blur in my mind of them being younger. But now that they're older, I'm putting a lot more emphasis on the business, and it's doing that much better. So I never had that, I'm almost going to lose my family. I did have, though, to be fair, I had one moment that I talk about where my wife came to me after we had just done 13 months on the road as a family. We did a road trip across the country as a family. we came back and business wasn't doing all that great. And my wife came out of the bathroom at one point and she just said, I want you to know, I don't know if I can do another year of this. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, I'm tired of struggling and making it just month to month. You're providing for us, but you're not really blowing it out of the water. And that was a big moment for me because I've never heard my wife almost threaten that. And I went, oh crap. And that totally changed things around. I completely changed the business around right there. But that was a long answer to your short question, but yes.
No, look, I love what you just said because there's so much I could break down from what you just said. But the one thing I want to talk about, there's this defining moment, which it sounds like your wife provided that for you.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
look, man, I don't want to do this anymore, or at least another year of this. And when you put pressure on somebody, they're going to either fight back or they're going to really cower in the corner. It sounds like you fought back,
Mm-hmm.
really got clear on your why.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want people to have to get to that defining moment,
Yes.
but yet pressure's not a bad thing.
No.
Often we respond best to a
Yeah.
challenge, a struggle. So what would you say to somebody that's, yeah, I mean, they're doing fine, but they're not really fulfilled in business. They're not really fulfilled in their relationships because I see it all the time, Dino.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Me too. And I would say you do need that pressure. I think the pressure is good. It's like positive peer pressure, right? You want people around you who are going to lift you up and push you to do and be better. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm actually dealing with that right now. And again, we have another evolution. Again, our kids are all gone. They've been gone for a few years. Last year, I went on 95 trips last year across the country. Now, at first glance, I wasn't like, well, that's a lot. That's not too bad, but it's a lot. It's a lot. And there was a period of this last quarter where I was only home 20 days total in my home for a 4 month period of time. And my wife actually had another moment. Like we were doing some planning. We were doing our planning for 2024 the other day. And she goes, I don't want to have another moment like that where I say, I'm not going to do this again. She goes, but I don't want to do that again. And I've been using it as an excuse that my kids have been gone because I'm like, well, I don't have any kids at home. Like, it's fine. But I actually really like my wife and we like hanging out with each other. And she's like, I can't have you gone as much as you were last year. We got to figure something else out. So I'm having that moment again where I'm going, okay, challenge, right? I'm going to push up against that. I'm going to feel like I got to figure something. I'm going to ask the right people, get the more right people in my life. So if there are people out there right now dealing with that, and I think you do need that pressure. I think that's what makes us grow and get better. It's that for some people, it's when you first have a kid, right? And you realize, oh man, it's not about me anymore. I got to provide for this. And I definitely did that. But I think sometimes you just have to put that, if you can, self-induced, but sometimes external pressure of get better. I was at an event last night where maybe it's not about business. Maybe it's about your personal life. Maybe you need to, be around people that you're not going to drink as much, or you're going to, stop pornography, or you're going to put your marriage as a priority. Be around the people that will give you that pressure to do that. And it's more likely going to happen.
One of the things your wife has done now twice in your career, maybe more, I'm sure it's actually more than that, but she
Yeah.
brought real levity to the situation to say, look, I like the life we've created, but
Yep.
it could be better.
Yeah.
Like being home 20 days and 4 months, man, that's not a grind that most people are going to enjoy. I don't know many people that would enjoy. I've done it.
Yeah.
It's not for me, brother. And
Yeah.
and what your wife is saying is like, look, let's design something. You're talented in anything you choose to do. Let's design something. So I want to wrap that into, you also dropped, hey, we were planning for 2024.
Yeah.
And it wasn't Dino was planning, and then, hey, honey, come here. Let's talk about what this looks like. It sounds like you sat down and said, look, what are we doing this year? What are we trying to do? We are empty nesters, kids are out of the house, but what do we want our life to look like? Because the goals are not just Dino and then everyone else. This is a holistic approach. This is us creating this. So what does that look like? What, when you sat down to do that?
So it's still an ongoing process. We've been taking a couple of hours every day this last couple of weeks. And actually, right after we're done recording this, I'm done for the year, right? I'm not doing any more work. And except for we will come together, and that board that I have behind me is my big whiteboard that we get on and we plan out what's the programs, what's the offers, all that stuff. But for us, it's interesting. I feel like I've always kind of lived my life in some ways asking my wife, like, what do you want? Like, what would make you happy? And then I create that. So I mentioned our road trip we did for 13 months on the road. That was because she really wanted to do that. I was like, cool, let's figure it out. Let's make it happen. But our sit down process is to really talk about what would make us both feel like we're both connected. We can do stuff together. We don't work in the business all the time, but we want both of us to be aware. She's a writer, I do my thing, but want to be aware of like what's to come. So for example, she wants to spend a month in a minimum month in Europe, maybe the whole summer, not this year, but next year. So we got to set up our life this year to prepare to do that next year. And travel around in an RV in Europe for the month or summer, depending on what we decide on. But it's really about saying, yes, I can do this. No, I can't do that. Also financially, because if I'm going to shift stuff in my business, it means I got to hire different people to do stuff that I was doing. And so we got to look at that. Well, where are we going to either sacrifice or build, which I like build better than sacrifice, but build in our business so that we can afford those things and we can build that into our business. So it's just a sit down. It's not always, I mean, just gonna be real with you again. It's not always pleasant all the time. It's like she has different wants. I have different wants. I'm getting older. I'm 51 years old. She's like, I want to spend more time with you. We gotta, it's a tug of war, but we're both coming to the table. My wife and I years ago created a thing called the Marriage Mastermind. And the Marriage Mastermind is something that I believe every marriage should do, where we talk about schedule, finances, and things we need to either apologize for or get back on the same page with and stuff like that. And that's a part of the process. And so we just sit together and say, what do you want? What do I want? How do we put those things together? And like I said, it's not over. Like we've done it, I want to say 3 times, about an hour to 2 hours each. We're close, but we want to know what next year is going to be looking like. So we have to spend that time to do it.
Yeah, and this will come out after, so it'll be sometime in January. So people are mid into their goals. But what I love about that is these goals are not just stagnant. It's not like these are moving targets.
Yeah.
And after doing, let's say, 4 months on the road, and your wife says, "No, dude, like I want you home." What I love is that you manifest, is the word I'll use, whatever that you're trying to, whatever you guys really want.
Yep.
And I love the lack of self-limiting beliefs in that statement alone. It's like, well, what do we want to do? Okay, let's create it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's like, all right, how do we do it? Let's figure it out. And I think often when people are doing their goals, they're just kind of following the rules of like, all right, how much money do we want to make? What vacation we want to do? Well, think big. Because Dino's already said, look, I barely graduated high school and now I've been on every network there is. It wasn't because I was blessed with being the smartest guy in the world or, had the pedigree, but I have this ability to create. And I think more people have it. They just don't know how to access it.
I got to give a lot of credit. My wife she's an amazing manifester. And we still joke about this, but when we were dating decades ago, there was a time where we were driving the car and she was talking, and I mean, we weren't even close to marriage. We were just dating in high school. And she had mentioned something about me being a diamond in the rough, that she's going to polish me up, and I was like, don't change me. I am who I am. Blah, 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 blah. And yet 100% it's her ability to say, okay, I see this in you. She sees stuff in me I don't see in me. And that's the leap of faith I have to take a lot of times, is her saying, no, you're better than that, or you can do that because I see that in you. There was actually a conversation, again, our planning meetings, we do it probably quarterly, where I had said to her finally, and this was something that was hard for me to admit to, we weren't in a great place in the sense of this conversation, because she was like, why not this? And I'm like, because of this. And we were kind of tug of war back and forth. And finally I said, I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do that. The stuff you're asking sounds awesome, but I don't know how to do it. I've been faking this, or I don't know how to do that, or I'll make it up if I have to. And the resolve then becomes, oh, we're both now aware of our limitations. We got to find the people who can help us overcome those limitations. And that's been my whole life. And like I said, graduation, no high school, I have dyslexia. I thought I was dumb my whole life. There's no way I was going to college. That didn't sound fun. But my whole life's been based around relationships. And so it's who do we find to help us do that? And oddly enough, those people show up when you say, this is what people I need to find, and you let people know about it, you talk about it. It's fascinating. So I give so much credit to her for the pressure, going back to the beginning again, of how do I want to shift this? How do I want to change this? Right. So,
Yeah, just putting it out to the universe. And again, people can think whatever they want to think. Saying aloud, this is what I don't know. This is who I'm looking for. It's not the male or female or tall or short. It's not, it's this is the what I'm looking for in this other human being.
yep.
They do show up. And here's a couple reasons why, just so everybody's clear. Now it's the forefront of Dino and his wife's, which by the way, what is your wife's name? So I don't keep
Shannon.
calling her. What is it?
Shannon.
Shannon.
Yep.
Dino and Shannon put it, reticular activating system. So they now know what the heck they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Before it's just frustrations. I don't know how to do it. I'm spinning my wheels. We're throwing money at it and none of it works. And I'm speaking on this so clearly because I've gone through this so many times where it sucks to feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I need to get there. I just got to find it. And by verbalizing it, and that's why I want to ask you, because it's really a part of your vision. And I know values are a huge part of what you talk about and to support the team, but your vision is, look, this is the vision I want to create.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I don't know. This is who we need to find so that we can build this vision to what it's going to become.
Yeah. So I actually have 3 visions. I talk about this with my doctors and stuff and any business leaders is I actually think everybody needs 3 visions. And so I have what I call my legacy vision. My legacy vision is the happiest place on earth type thing, right? Where it's like, it's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to fulfill it completely on this earth because I'm just one person, but the vision has got to be bigger than me. So my vision for everything I do is to reverse the direction of divorce, addiction, and suicide amongst business owners and their team members. So that's everything I do is focused around how am I going to help more of that happen? Then I have my actionable vision, which is 3 to 5 years. So the 3 to 5 years is the big shifter, right? Where it's like, okay, we're not on the right path. We need to be doing this in order to get to that. And so that's a big part of that is the leg or the actionable vision. And then you have your daily vision, which is what am I going to do every day to keep me on track for that? But without that, I'd be lost. And that's what guides me on everything that I do. And Shannon as well, because she knows that's part of my vision. It's not necessarily hers because that's my vision, but yeah, that's what guides us for everything.
When people hire you, Dino, because often they're going, well, this guy's badass at business, man. He's gonna, that bottom line's gonna go up, more zeros in my bank account, like bang, we're crushing it. But that wasn't your overall, the legacy vision was to reduce divorce, addiction. Suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Does that do people see that? I'm curious because I've never looked at your marketing material.
Yeah.
You and I have had conversations, but
yeah.
Is that why they're hiring you, or are they hiring you and this is this awesome byproduct of what they get? And I'm really curious because this is a lot of my coaching. I end up doing so much more personal work when the truth is they hired me to build the business or help grow the team or the culture.
Yep.
But we're really working with the person so that they can be fulfilled and happy.
So I hardly ever talk about bottom line stuff. I almost never, when I'm pitching people, I don't talk about how much more money they want to make, what the increase is. I might throw that in every once in a while, like where are you, where do you want to be type stuff. But I am almost always going to be talking about relational things. So what relationships don't you have? What relationships do you have that aren't working? Who on your team are not wanting to be a part of the culture of your office? So when people hire me, they hire me based upon the idea that I'm going to help them grow in their relationship inside their office, meaning they got to be better communicators, better leaders, have a better culture inside the office. And the happy byproduct is always more money. And so I have this formula that I talk about in some of my speeches, which is called the magnetic culture equation. And if you look at some of the major businesses out there, the top businesses from Apple to Disney and you can see this, Disney's doing a great job for me right now of showing how when you don't focus on your culture equation, that you will not be making more money. But if you look at all the major companies out there, they have three major things in common. They all have a very specific vision. They have specific expectations, or what I call core values, and they understand how to support their team members and their customers, or their guests, if you will, with Disney. And when you put that together and you really focus on those three things, you will always attract more money, but you'll also overcome, whether it be pandemics or even bad products. And I talk about this with, when I say bad products, I don't mean they're bad companies. What I mean by is, like, I use McDonald's as an example. Nobody's going to say McDonald's is healthy for you. It's not a good, quote unquote, product for your body, but it's obviously good in what they know what they're doing. You know, you're going to get the same thing every time. It's quick, it's convenient. You know, people love the Diet Coke and the French fries for a reason. But because of that, they overcome price challenges, they overcome economy. They use Apple. Everybody knows of a broke college student sleeping on somebody's couch, but they have an iPhone and a MacBook Pro, because Apple's magnetic culture overcomes that. No one's worrying about pricing. They're worrying about being a part of the culture. And so when you can do that, and that's what I teach my clients, is you do that, people will be attracted to you. When I say people, I mean the right team members, and then the right people you want to work with, customers or clients. And so when you do those two things, you'll automatically have more money coming to you. And it just happens everywhere. I mean, there's so much evidence of it. It's ridiculous.
I gotta dive into, you mentioned Disney.
Yeah.
I'll throw Bud Light in there, Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
They shocked
Yeah.
their clients, their demographic, by doing something that was so out of character for what they're building. Now, so we're clear, I want everybody to be happy. I don't give a shit if what you are, who you are, whatever makes you
100%.
happy. I'm cool with that.
Yep.
But I think what happened as a Bud Light consumer, which I'm not, but you're saying, well, why are you shoving this in my face? Like, I don't care if whatever the Dylan drinks beer, cool, do you? I don't care. But now you're saying this is the brand.
Yes.
And Disney has gone through the woke thing where it's like, now this is the brand, and everybody's going, wait a minute. So what happened to everything we bought into? And both companies have just plummeted in terms of the bottom line. And I want people to take a look at that for a second. Don't get political on it, guys.
Right.
Just look at the fact that you built something people could buy into and trust, and then you absolutely destroyed it by presenting something completely different. It is two great examples. I'm glad you brought it up, because they had such strong brands, and look how fast it got cratered by doing this.
Well, I love the Disney thing, because Disney even they snuck it in, right? And so parents were going like, well, wait a minute, what is this going on? This is not why we purchase your thing. Let me do this. I'm going to take it away from a brand or a product. We see this all the time in entertainment. So let's use Jim Carrey as an example. Jim Carrey rose to fame because he was the funny, hilarious, wackadoo dude that we were all knowing we could not expect what to expect from him. And we love that in his movies, from Ace Ventura to The Mask to everything he did. And then he goes and does The Cable Guy. The Cable Guy is not what his customers were expecting from him, because they expect funny, silly, all that stuff. They're not wanting drama. There are very few actors who can switch between that. And usually they didn't build their brand based upon one thing. They were an actor that happened to be in a comedy, not like Tom Hanks can do it because he was an actor who happened to be in a comedy, not a comedic actor who his brand was based upon that. So we can do that in all aspects of our lives. When you are pitching and selling a customer on one thing, and then you come in and do a left turn, your customer base will always leave you because you lied to them and you're trying to pull something over on them. So Disney is very, I mean, I used to work for Disney. I was a Disney cast member. I love Disney. I went to Disney University. And so speaking from that point of view, Disney was always about, everything we give you is going to be to where you can relive your childhood or feel like a child again. Walt Disney's promise was that we're going to make it a magical day and go to the happiest place on earth. It wasn't, hey, we're going to make you think about political things or woke things or anything like that. And again, I agree with you. Live your life however you want to live. I'm not saying what their messaging is wrong. What I'm saying is that they did a little 180 on their customer base. And so to be surprised and upset that their customer base doesn't change and go to where they want to go. No, they bought you for one specific thing. They'll tell you if they want that to change. They'll tell you if they're like, hey, can you add this? Like they did with Star Wars. They said, yes, we want Star Wars, another fantasy of ours, to come and join the fantasy of Disney. Great. And there were actually even patrons who didn't like that. But overall, that was a good thing. So when Bob Iger did that and he bought Marvel, those were huge purposes. And Pixar, those were huge purchases because it was on brand. These other things are off brand. I'll just say one last thing that wrap that up. The other part of it that's even worse for me with the Disney is Bud Light. When they did that, they kind of threw it at you, and it was like a shock and awe moment. Like, wait, what? This has nothing to do with our brand. Disney, I mentioned a moment ago, they're sneaking it in, and they're just putting little things in there. People expect to have a message in their business, in their movies, expect to have a message with their TV shows from Disney. But when you throw in the middle of that message something that has nothing to do with the message at all, but is completely just an agenda thing, then people start to distrust you. And the worst thing you can have, the worst way to build trust with a customer base is to trick them and to give them something that they didn't ask for. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. So if you ever decide to take that left turn, I guess really being clear to say, hey, guys, we've done this for 100 years a certain way, or however long it's 40 years a certain way. We decided we're going to go a different direction. Now you don't have the shock, the awe, the anger that really came from Bud Light people were like, never again. Kid Rock is like shooting at, with a gun because he's like, I'm never drinking this again.
Yep.
I think because it was like, look, cool if you want to change the pattern. I'm good with that. But give us a heads up. And I think any leader listening, you're going to have these moments. You're going to have these crucial conversations and moments where you do make a transition. As a leader, things happen.
Right.
And it'll probably happen this year in every business.
Yep.
The worst thing you can do is to not communicate to your team and to think that they're not strong enough, they're not adult enough to hear. How would you suggest somebody go about that? Because you see it in businesses. Look, the strategy has to change because the market's taking a dump and we're in deep trouble. The worst thing you can do is be like, oh, no, everything's fine. We're just going to go along to get along.
Right.
And then you start doing things way off rails. Communicate. Why don't leaders see that? It's mind boggling to me.
Well, I think you get into this place of comfort, and obviously what you've been doing so far makes you so smart. I think everybody thinks they're Steve Jobs who can say, well, we'll tell you what you want, right? Instead of really finding out, all right, so at least let me get some ideas of what is working. I mean, it's business 101. Find out what's working, do more of that. Find out what's not working, do less of that. But I think sometimes as leaders, we get so caught up in our own press or our own success, and there's a lot of world pressure out there right now. There definitely is. I mean, you can look at the companies, the bigger companies like Disney and stuff like that. And really you can look at small companies. Like how many tiny little companies are being canceled because of something someone said that was absolutely untrue, but it got online and went viral. And now that company's out of business. And unfortunately, we see that a lot in small mom and pop businesses that are happening. And it can happen both ways. Like I would be saying the exact same thing if Disney was sneaking in, Christian televangelist type stuff in their stuff, because the audience would react the same way. Hey, this isn't what we asked for. This is what we're paying for and what you for. And it's the same thing in any business. But yeah, I think as leaders, one of the most important parts of being a leader is having the pulse on what's actually happening in our community with our customer base. How can we help them achieve the promise that we invited them into our company in the first place? Nike, if they was to turn around and say, you know what, and this is probably going to get us in trouble, but if Nike were to turn around and say, hey, you know what, a sedentary overweight life is good. It's fine. We're going to accept that. How many people would they lose right away? If they, hey, we designed a shoe for people who have diabetes. Nike's not going to do that because they understand who their client base is, and it makes sense because they listen to their client base. Now, I'll tell you, Adidas is doing something really interesting right now. And I know this as an insider. My daughter's actually an influencer on TikTok, and she was just invited to the Adidas campus in Germany over Thanksgiving. And my daughter's not a runner. And that was one of the things when they reached out to her. She's like, I'm not a runner. Why do you want me to come and do this? I said, no, we're doing a whole new brand for people who are just starting to run, to learn that you don't have to be a professional to be a runner. You don't have to be an always runner, but you can be somebody who wants to get involved in running. Well, here's a company that's going, okay, there's a market here that's not being served. Everybody thinks you have to be a professional to get running shoes. No, there are other shoes you can get to start you in the running process, not as expensive, not as technically abrupt as all the other ones that are out there. That's listening to your customer base and knowing what's going on.
Is listening the most important thing for a sales and leaders to do? It's a skill that, look, we all have the ability to listen. It doesn't mean we listen well. And so question one is it the most important? And if it is, if because I truly believe in sales, it's the most important thing you can have as a salesperson.
Yeah.
How do we increase that, brother? How do people get better at truly listening so that they can have their sales rise, so they don't piss off their customers? How do you improve on that?
Well, on a personal basis, first of all, I so wanted to throw in the joke of like, I'm sorry, what'd you say? But I didn't do it. But on a personal sales level, absolutely listening. There's a study that came out that showed in order for us to answer a question or have a rebuttal of something, it takes the mind 0.08 seconds to process in order to come up with what you want to say. In the same study, they watched people in conversation and saw that people would answer or rebut in the conversation in 0.03 seconds. And it's because most people are already formulating what they're going to say before you're done speaking. It's that old adage of, are you listening to respond or listening to understand? And I think, especially in sales, the fastest way that I've learned to actually know that you're listening and pay attention that you're listening is actually, it's a secret from a buddy of mine, not secret, but it's something a buddy of mine named Ty Bennett, he uses, and he calls it the rule of two. That if you really want to let people know that you're paying attention, after somebody finishes talking, always ask 2 follow-up questions. Now, taking from Chris Voss and the book Never Split the Difference, the easiest way to do that is just to repeat the last sentence that they said in the form of a question, or the last 4 words that they said in form of a question. And it gives, number one, you more information and feedback, because people will then go, oh, I guess I need to clarify. Let me say this again. But number 2, it demands that you are listening to what those last few words are, or that last sentence is, so that you can ask that follow-up question using their own words. So
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, go.
No, I was just going to say, so yeah, to answer your question, absolutely. Listening is so crucial. And I think it's also a challenge right now, because we do live in a, for lack of a better phrase, a TikTok society where everything's super fast. We get our information. I'm guilty of it. I have ADD. I love just getting information, so we just cut people off and don't listen.
Yeah, I will say, as a podcast host, and I don't know how you feel when you do your show, but I'm formulating a question, trying to listen at the same time. There are moments where I get lost too, and I'm like, wait a minute, focus, listen,
Yeah.
don't think about where you want to go. Hear what he has to say and then move forward. I do want to shift gears, though. I want to get to the power of perspective. It's a topic that you have on there. It's one of my favorite subjects, because I think by and large, society has lost perspective in so many ways. I think it's what creates so many challenges and problems that aren't really there, but people have lost perspective. I think this is where entitlement comes from. It's like, you don't have any freaking perspective. Talk to me about the power of perspective. And have we just lost it as a society, or what's happening, man?
I think we've just become we're all selfish human beings, right? And so to be able to think through something and go, well, just because I see it that way doesn't mean that they see it that way. Um, I do a game. So whenever I do a training, I will do this game, and I've done it for, I want to say, over 10 years now, and it works every single time. And the game is this: I have everybody in the room write for 60 seconds, write down any word they can think of that's associated with the word that I choose. And it doesn't matter what the word is, but if I said water, they would write down bottle, shower, river, lake, but they've got 60 seconds to write down as many words they possibly can. And then after they do that, then I say, okay, and I put them into teams and I have them all team up or whatever. And I say, listen, you're going to get 1 point for your team for every word that everyone on the team got identical. So everybody has to write down bottle, but if one person wrote down bottles, that's not a point. It has to be unanimous. And there's usually like 10 people in a team. Usually the most I've ever seen on a score from a team, no matter what the word is that I choose, and I'll use words that are industry specific. I do it once where it's not industry specific, and the next one I do. The most I've ever seen is 3 points out of an entire team. And the point afterwards that I always make is, listen, I don't care if you trained that person yesterday on this process. I don't care if you just had this conversation last week and explained exactly what you needed. Everyone's perspective changes all the time. What happened on your way into work today? Let's just say you had an argument with your spouse in the morning, then you got cut off driving in, and then your coffee wasn't as hot as you like it. That changes your perspective, and you're filtered through that. So if you can't get to the place of understanding, they just see it differently, or they're just looking at it differently. And then perspective is always amplified through empathy. If you then can say, all right, let me have some empathy and trying to understand, how did they come to that conclusion or that decision? And this can be with your kids, with your team members, always with your spouse. What are they looking at? And I use my wife as an example too. Again, known her since I was 5, been married for 29 years. And the times when I get in trouble in my relationship is when I just assume she's going to see it this way or act this way. We grew up literally in the same neighborhood. She was there when my parents divorced. I was there when her father died. There's nothing we don't know about each other. But when I get in trouble is when I just assume she's going to act this way and I don't see a perspective. So yeah, it's I think one of the most underutilized tools that we have in business is really focusing and talking a lot about perspective and shifts. And I talk about it continually.
It is one of those things when you assume you make an ass out of you and out of me. I mean, it's the old saying, but it's so true. 46 years you've known this woman, 29 married, yet her lens, her perspective, as you said, it shifts. Yep. And so we don't really ever know what anyone else is truly going through, which will lead me to my next one. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because in 2024, my theme is to speak my truth. And I'm curious, brother, if there's anything weighing on your heart or where you're just like, you know what, this is my truth right now. And I got to shout it out to the world so everyone knows this is what's on Dino's mind. It's not to be harmful to anyone. No. It's just my truth. And I get to own that because it's mine.
Wow. I'm really surprised you're asking this question. So this year, my word and focus was transformation. That was my word this year. So mine going in 2024 is all about transparency, even if it hurts. So and I'll be there right now. So I'm actually thinking about starting. I'm not thinking about, we've actually decided to do it. I'm going to start a podcast with my son. My son is 23 years old and he's been suicidal for probably 4 to 5 years. And now as an adult, as a parent, you try to do everything you possibly can. And when they're teenagers, you can have some control over that. But as adults, you have zero control. Like you sit there and you watch this and you have them tell you, no, I want to die. I want the pain to end, if you will. And we're doing everything we can. But the more I've talked about this in the last 2 months and just really been open, I was talking to a group of people in Vegas about a month ago at a conference and just happened to say, I'm dealing with my son wanting to kill himself. And you just get people to stop and be like, me too. Wow, I've had that problem too. And I just saw more and more people who are open to. I've never personally dealt with that myself. There was a dark moments in my life, but never where I was like, yeah, I'm committed to this end. And my son is. And it's a really weird conversation to have because we're also very transparent with each other. We can talk about this in a way of me saying, okay, what's going on today? And it's like, yeah, today's okay. And so we're actually going to start a podcast talking about this. And it's, for me, it's kind of one of my, hopefully, therapies for him to say, let's talk about it. Let's see who else is feeling like this. Who else is out there like that? Feeling like there's no point to life, feeling like there's no reason to have pursuit of anything, which is exactly the opposite of how I raised him and what I've shown him in my life. So transparency to me has been one of those words that's popped up quite a bit of going, I need help in my business. I need help with my son. I need help in whatever area, my health. Because oddly, what happens is, as you said earlier, the moment you put it out there and you're transparent about it, people show up and are willing to help, and you're not alone. And for me as a father right now, not feeling alone in this, I have no freaking clue what to do. We've tried everything. We're still trying everything. He's an adult and I have zero control, and that sucks. But yeah, transparency is the key.
Well, I will say thank you for sharing that. Thank you for bringing that to the world because my history, my audience does. Like suicide is very near and dear to my heart. And the fact that you're having open conversations with someone that's at least willing to verbalize, I'm hurting. I don't feel great. Whatever he's saying, at least you have that opportunity. So many of us that have had people, we didn't get that opportunity. We didn't get a chance to say, I'm not here to help, but just I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. I think it's going to be your other show is amazing, brother, but I'm really excited to hear that. Gosh, I could go so many ways, Dino. You know what? Let me just give you 30 seconds, a minute to just anything else you want to make sure to cover before we end up. How can people reach you? You have so much depth to you, brother. I could go anywhere and you have so many answers, but I'll just give you open forum.
Well, I appreciate it. First of all, thank you for having me on. And just to touch on what you just said there too, and I know we talked about this a little bit. So my brother took his life about 5 years ago. Again, you're right. Like, you don't have that opportunity. And that's the thread I'm holding on to, is at least we're open to the conversation. Right. And I think it started with him thinking it was gonna be like a shock value thing to me. But because I didn't react the way that I think he thought I was going to react, or his mom, it was like, okay, well, let's talk about it and let's figure it out. And for people out there listening, I mean, he's in therapy. We're doing everything from traditional therapy to plant-based medicine therapy. We're doing whatever we can to help him out, and he's open to it, so that's good. But yeah, living every day going like, what's up? He even came home today from work. He's in a grumpy mood, and he's living with us right now. He normally doesn't, but he's living with us right now, and he's in a grumpy mood. It's like, great, what are we gonna deal with for our family party tonight? um, my website, dinowatt.com, dinowattconsulting.com, both of them. My speaking website is dinowatt.com, and then my consulting website is dinowattconsulting.com. You can find me on all social media platforms. But I don't know, final message I would just say this is and Steve, I've been able to Steve, I don't know why I'm calling you Steve. JM, I've seen a lot of your stuff on social media, especially since we did our podcast and stuff. I think we have a lot of similarities to us about how passionate we are about helping people in their business and in their personal lives as well. And I love that. And I believe there's opportunity out there in our world today to help connect with more people. And if I could say one thing that I believe would change around our world, it is that perspective piece, perspective and empathy. There's a lot of people I don't agree with. There's a lot of things going on in the world I don't agree with. But I believe that there are three main things that every single human being wants. And it's that you see me, you hear me, and what I say matters. And the what I say matters part to me is, I need you to understand, I don't agree with you, but I believe that it matters to you. So that matters to me, that it matters to you. We don't have to love each other. We don't have to get along, but we at least have to respect each other and have that perspective of like, okay, that's your life, and that's what you believe, and that's how you feel. Okay. So I think if more of us did that, we'd be a lot better off in this world.
I agree with you, brother. I've never changed one person's belief in my entire life. It's one
Right?
of those lessons I learned. And my sister and I, prior to the show, we talk and we see the world so differently, but I love her. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean she's right. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means that's our perspective. I love that. Dino, you're awesome, man. I could do this with you for hours, brother. Thank you for coming on and sharing so much wisdom, man. You're just
My
you're
pleasure.
freaking awesome, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate it a lot, Jam.
You guys, I mean, look, we talked about leadership. We talked about life. We talked far more about life. Honestly, I love the goal section, that last part on perspective. There's so much to Dino and what he does. Go check him out, please. Go to his website. He is an incredible speaker. Hopefully, he's not on the road as much as he was last year. Let's make sure Shannon's happy.
Yes.
But go check out the website for sure. And until next time, you guys, please be kind. Check in on your perspective. Share this with someone you care about. I think Dino provided so much. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.